Hey yo, what's up, fellas? Today I got TooMeanToBean on, website designer, activist, TikToker. Do you want to describe yourself, your ideology, what you do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a content creator on TikTok, like a software engineer by trade. So that's what I do, like for my job, I guess. Yeah, and my ideology, I don't know. I guess Marxist-Leninist, I guess.
Yes, it's
um,
a little bit gray right now. You're still in the
yeah,
process of
yeah,
figuring it out. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like a sexuality. You're exploring everything.
Right, right.
Once you go Marxist-Leninist, though, you can't go back. That's what I always say. You know.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But what I really wanted to bring you on here for was to talk about the Reverse Canary mission, which is a website you've created. So, like, first of all, what is the Reverse Canary mission? What does it do?
Yeah, basically, Reverse Canary Mission. The URL is reversecanarymission.org. Basically, it's a website where you can like post. It's mostly for celebrities. You can post celebrities who have endorsed or in some way supported the current genocide in Gaza or like the historical occupation. Yeah,
Okay,
so some notable examples are like Taylor Swift, who showed her Eras Tour movie in Israel, for example. I think that's one of the big reasons why she's on there.
okay, okay. Could you move a little bit closer? By the way, you're cutting out a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, no, it's good. So, why do you think it was so important to make the Reverse Canary mission to just call out these like anti-Palestine, pro-Israel, Zionist celebrities, content creators? Like, what do you think putting public pressure on them is so important, and just informing the public about them?
Yeah. I think one of the big ways, like what is considered normal within our culture, is dictated by like celebrities,
Yeah,
the opinions that they hold. Like a lot of our society's beliefs are like reflections of like the beliefs of like famous people. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. I
mm,
wish it weren't that way, but because it's that way, I think it's important to like criticize celebrities when they do things that are, not good. So like one example of this not related to Palestine is like people criticizing Taylor Swift for like her private jet usage, for example, and criticizing celebrities over stuff like that. It kind of changes the public narrative about these sorts of issues. So like criticizing celebrities about not speaking up about Gaza kind of, it's an attempt to normalize speaking up about Gaza. Like that's something that everyone should be doing, right? And so criticizing celebrities is like a fast way to do that rather than like maybe tell everyone in your personal circle you need to speak up about Gaza. And it makes more sense to try and change it,
right, right.
like criticizing celebrities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, celebrities wield such a large public power, basically, and they are so enmeshed within the system of capitalism. They're in this weird class relation where they're sort of workers, right? Like they don't own any means of production, but they're such
Right.
privileged workers. They're such well off, rewarded workers that they sort of their class interests almost sort of become enmeshed with the state, with capitalism itself, and of course they end up becoming sometimes petit bourgeois. They end up owning like small factories and businesses, but they reflect our culture's values and they hold so much power just in the minds of people, average everyday people, teenagers. Ariana Grande was able to raise so much money just by posting about Palestine, and of course she had to be pressured to do that. So yeah,
Right.
we really can't discount celebrity culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's like when the Ukraine Russia war started, like Selena Gomez made a post in support of Ukraine. So it's not like these celebrities are like apolitical, right? I think people this time around have like there's been a lot of backlash to people like me, like, oh, like why are you criticizing these celebrities? Like they shouldn't be expected to speak up. But like the capitalist class who kind of like sort of provides these celebrities with their platform. Like they definitely pressure their celebrities to speak up, which
Right.
is why Selena made that post, right? So it's like a weird double standard I think people have.
Yeah.
Like the people can pressure the celebrities, but yeah, the capitalist class certainly can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Celebrities are so enmeshed within our state. And what are they? But just like basically, in my opinion, a reflection of every single society's values, right? And what is capitalist America's values? It's opulence, it's wealth, it's supporting the state always. So celebrities are always sort of enmeshed within, like, you cannot separate celebrities from ideology. And they're always supporting the state narrative, basically. Ukraine, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan wars. And they get punished if they go against the grain, you know.
Right, yeah, the Dixie Chicks, I think, like for the Iraq War, they got punished hard for speaking out against that.
Pretty much. Yeah. And so many celebrities are currently getting punished for speaking out for Palestine. You know, what does it mean when you go against the state narrative? You lose deals, right? You lose deals, you lose money. Yeah. You become popular with the people, but you lose everything. So there's this systemic system in place to make celebrities silent on Gaza, make them silent on genocide, make them silent and fall in line with the state. Do you want to pick up any of the threads I'm laying down here? Or?
Yeah, I just want to talk about that double standard again, because it's like when the capitalists pressure the celebrities to either stay silent or like endorse a genocide, we just view that as normal.
Right.
Like when, you know, people online try and pressure these celebrities, we're viewed as like we're doing too much. You know, people are saying like, you guys are just terminally online. And I think it's just like this weird tension between like what we consider normal. It's just like when the capitalists do something, it's normal. But when we the people do something, it's suddenly not normal. It's like terminally online behavior, which has been kind of frustrating, right? But it's something I think we still have to continue doing despite like the backlash.
Yeah, it's very odd. And of course, Zionism is so enmeshed within celebrity culture. It's odd, right? Why on earth are celebrities like die hard for Zionism? Pharrell Williams, for example, played a concert. I was using your website, Reverse Canary Mission. It's a great resource.
That's crazy that he did that.
For anybody that doesn't know, Pharrell Williams did a charity fundraiser. He played for a charity fundraiser for the IDF. So you raised, how much money do you raise? Do you know?
I don't know the exact number.
But he raised like a ton of money for the IDF, basically, for singing songs about him. It's odd how diehard celebrities are within Zionism. And it really just goes to show that celebrities themselves are ideological, right? That they are enmeshed within the state. You know, we think of Hollywood and our press and all this entertainment as separate from the state. But really, because of the structures of capitalism, because what is, you know, our government other than a representation of multi-billion-dollar industries, because of this, the free market basically just tends towards the state narrative. So moving on from the reverse canary mission, Joe Biden has recently stepped down. Kamala Harris is likely going to be the nominee. I'm not sure when this video is going to release, but why do you think so many people have been just flocking towards Kamala Harris, especially from the pro-Palestine side?
I think a big part of it, I think some of it is like genuine. Like, I think a lot of people like see like, oh, this is like a black woman who might be our next president. Like, that's kind of exciting. Mm-hmm. And that's like very like a surface level analysis. I think there are some people who are just happy that like Genocide Joe is out. And yeah, I think some people actually view her as like they view her as like a policy shift from Joe Biden. I don't think that's true, personally.
Right.
I don't think people should be that excited about Kamala Harris. I think, like, at least with regards to, like, Palestine, I don't think her policy is going to be all that different from Joe Biden or even, like, Trump, for that matter. I might be canceled for saying that.
I don't
like, materially speaking, like... Sure. But, like, yeah, materially speaking, I don't see why anyone would believe that. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that's true. I think one of the big reasons why she sprung up in popularity is just because people don't want to acknowledge the real problem, which is neoliberal capitalism. because acknowledging, that Kamala Harris is not the solution would necessarily mean questioning, like, an individual questioning their own beliefs about, like, their role in, like, a neoliberal society.
Yeah.
I think people can't handle that. They can't handle the truth. Is why, like, I think people are, like, especially people who've been pro-Palestine, like, they've been really supporting Kamala Harris. It really makes not that much logical sense. And I can talk more.
Yeah. I think to a part of a sense, it sort of shows, Lenin had this famous phrase that, like, left unity. I'm sort of paraphrasing. I'm not doing a direct quote, but left unity so often is used just as a catch-all to allow in liberals to our movement. And I think what has happened with the pro-Palestine movement is that so many liberals have come in calling themselves leftists. Leftist is such a dead word in America right now. Everybody's a leftist, right? Like, even Bullsh and, like, pro-Ukraine people and, these imperialist monsters are leftists. Destiny is apparently a leftist, even though he's pro-Israel. So many people have come into our movement who are not principled, who are willing to bend to neoliberalism, who don't have a red line that is genocide, and they've suddenly become pro-Kamala Harris because they want to wash off the blood that the Democrats have on their hands, right? Kamala Harris has as much blood as any IDF soldier in this genocide, right? She was the vice president during this whole orchestration event. We all know that
people
Joe
pretend
Biden,
like she had nothing to do with the current administration. Like, it's the Biden-Harris administration. Like,
yeah, exactly. So it's insane how much they want to act like she has had nothing to do with this genocide and how much they want to wash the blood off the Democrats' hands. Going to celebrity culture, though, the Democrats rely so heavily on celebrity endorsement, right? What do you think Hollywood is so enmeshed within the Democratic Party structure?
Like, why do I think that's the case?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are differences between, like, Republicans and Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I think Democrats do, like, genuinely support things such as, like, abortion rights and, like, queer and trans rights. Like, on paper, they will support these things.
Yeah.
And, like, Hollywood is, like, it is filled with a lot of artist type people. So, like, naturally they would gravitate towards the Democratic Party. But also, like, a lot of these Hollywood people are very wealthy. So they're not going to support someone outside of, like, neoliberal capitalism, outside of, like, Democrat or Republican. So I think, they support the Democrats because the Democrats will allow them to stay wealthy, but also support their human rights.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good answer because that's what the Democrats basically are. They'll support some rights for minorities, but they're not going to materially benefit anybody. It's Wakanda forever on Tuesday and then funding the police on Wednesday. It's insane. But some people have been saying that all this support for Kamala Harris is astroturf. Do you feel like that is true to any sense, or do you feel like this is actually organic, that our country is full of these many liberals that just love Kamala Harris and genocide?
I think the answer to this is kind of complicated. I don't feel like it's astroturfing. I don't believe it's astroturfing. Mm-hmm. I think the reason why it feels like astroturfing, I talked about this concept in a recent video. It's because of how the algorithm works. So I can expound a little bit more on that. I think a lot of people believe that these content platform algorithms, such as the ones that power like TikTok and Instagram Reels, people believe they're optimized to basically make people stay on the app as long as possible. But that's not like the entire truth. Because a lot of people who use these apps never spend any money on these apps. They never engage with any ads. I'm one of these people. I'm presuming that you're probably one of these people. You're not like shopping on TikTok Shop or whatever. So the thing is, like, our engagement doesn't really matter much to the algorithm. What matters is the engagement of people who do spend this money. And this demographic of consumer just tends to be upper middle class white people. Like, they make up the plurality of that demographic. So the result of this is that these content algorithms will sort of promote the ideology of that group because they are the most powerful consumer demographic. And in like how we observe this is, stuff like the Kamala Harris brat summer stuff. Like, to anyone who's not like upper middle class white, it's so cringy. It's so insane. Like alienating even.
Yeah.
You know, like this makes no sense. This is not how you run a campaign. Like, especially because like the Kamala Harris campaign, in order to like win the votes that they need to win, they don't need to appeal to those upper middle class white people who will probably already vote and donate to them. They need to appeal to like working class people of color, other minorities, queer minorities.
Yeah.
These are the people that the Democrats need to show out and turn out in order to win. It is, I think, a function of the algorithm that like all the support for Kamala Harris is in this like really white neoliberal sort of aesthetic, powered by like Charlie XCX and Chappell Roan. Well, I like both of those artists, but it's just like they kind of are like they're pretty white.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Bringing this back to speaking about celebrities, or hold on, I'll talk about that first. What you're talking about, yeah, I do think that the Democratic Party's main support base is this very upper middle class, gated community, Pilates classes sort of demographic that wants to be in touch with the masses somewhat. Like oh yeah, I'll care about trans rights and black.
And they'll have
rights.
a Black Lives Matter sign in their front yard. There's a lot of those types of people in Seattle where I live.
Right. It's performative, but they don't want to actually materially change anything in society because capitalism works for them, right? Like, who does capitalism work the best for? Well, first of all, it's the bourgeois, the rich. But second of all, the second biggest class that capitalism works for is the gated community, middle class white person. Everybody else pretty much on Earth is slaving away. You know, we've got slaves in cocoa mines for Hershey Farms and cobalt mines in the Congo. These people essentially slave away for the lifestyles of middle-class white people. And it's insane. Kamala Harris has broken fundraising records, which makes no sense to me. She's such a disgustingly corporate politician. She's getting her money for her campaign no matter what. Like, why on earth would somebody want to donate to Kamala Harris when she's already getting it from multi-billion-dollar corporations? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add on to that. That's why it feels like astroturfing. It's because everything about the campaign is so alien to like the working class in America, I think. And like, if you're working class, especially a person of color, and you're viewing like everything the campaign has done, it feels not real. It feels at odds with reality. I think that's why people say it's astroturfing, but no. I think it's just because the upper middle class white liberal is like the predominant cultural force within our society. And
right. They have the most purchasing power. Everything's sort of geared towards them. That makes sense. Yeah. But, you know, I bringing this back to the celebrity culture, do you think pressuring Zionists, you know, like celebrities holding their feet to the fire with the Canary mission or the reverse Canary mission actually works? Like, do you think that us doing this sort of online thing where we boycott them, block them, everything, do you think that actually has a measurable effect?
Yeah. I mean, like, materially speaking, like, you can just point to the numbers. I mean, like, Hank Green, I think, after, like, lots of public pressure, did a fundraiser for Gaza, like, raised a ton of money. I think there are some celebrities who have taken stuff down because of public pressure. Right. That's, like, a material thing we can point to. I think, like, very early on, like, for example, Justin Bieber took down his post after, like, public backlash. Yeah. And like, I think within like certain fandoms, like because of public pressure, like the celebrities aren't speaking out in favor of Israel, which may not seem like a win, but like if we didn't do this pressure, like it's possible that many of these celebrities would have come out in support of Israel, which would have been like,
yeah. Oftentimes on this podcast, I talk about creating like a counter hegemony to the main hegemony of the capitalist class. So basically, I'll explain it briefly for anybody who doesn't know what a hegemony is. A hegemony is sort of a cultural embodiment that the capitalist class imbues onto ordinary working class people. And that's through structures such as the government, media, church, religion, education. And basically what it teaches working class people is that the bourgeois interest, the rich's interest is the same as my interest, right? So a trucker in the middle who has no interest, who has none of the same interest as Jeff Bezos, will be defending Jeff Bezos getting tax cuts, right? Hollywood is part of the hegemon, and I think by pressuring Hollywood to be against Israel, not Palestine, but being pro-Palestine, at the very least dropping Israel, I think creates a beautiful counter-hegemon that wakes a lot of people up to this genocide. I think Reverse Canary Mission is great in that. Was Reverse Canary Mission based on? Obviously, it's called Reverse Canary Mission. Was it based on Zionist organizations that were doxing people, or?
Yeah, I mean, you already know the answer to this, but for those who don't know, there is a website called canarymission.org, and the only reason that website exists is to basically dox pro-Palestine activists. Especially student activists. They target student activists especially heavily because they know students are especially vulnerable to being like blackballed in the industry.
Yeah.
Like you might not even be able to find a first job within, especially like the entertainment and finance industries, where Zionists do hold a lot of power within those industries. What was that Harvard guy's name? Bill Ackman, for example, said that he's not hiring any pro-Palestinian person, period. Especially students, and so this Canary Mission website basically tries to pressure these students to staying silent for fear of career opportunities.
That's insane. That really is insane.
We also don't know who runs the website. It's they keep it totally private because they know it's fucked up. They know if people found out who ran this website, we'd be pretty fucking mad at them.
That is insane. That is very 1984-ish. It's so often we talk about the so-called authoritarianism of socialist states. If this shit was happening in North Korea, right? Oh my God, if I heard, oh my God, in North Korea, if you are against genocide, you get blacklisted from your job and you get publicly called out to everybody. If you're a student, that would send us with shivers. We would be going crazy. But since it's in America, it's normalized for whatever reason. And
and the fact that it's normalized, I think, for people who don't understand what hegemony means, it's the fact that we accept the Canary Mission as just normal and not surveillance. That is what hegemony is. It's what we accept as normal, which we really probably should have.
Absolutely. And I think it's partly because it's a private individual, or at least they're framing themselves as private. We don't know if they have any government support or, Zionist support, but they're basically acting like agents for the state. You don't need direct state involvement. People, because they're subsumed by the hegemony, can just become actors of the state all on their own. It's insane. And the job market is so enmeshed in Zionism. We've got Google, very heavily invested in Israel, Airbnb, very heavily invested in Israel, so on and so forth, Microsoft. So if you want to get a job at these places and you're outed as anti-Zionist, you're seen as a troublemaker by these jobs, right? Like a hiring manager is not going to hire you. If you were at a protest for Palestine, what next? You might want to start to organize a union within my company, cut into my bottom line. So it is insane.
Yeah, I think in the Bay Area at the Google office, there's an organization called No Tech for Apartheid. And basically, they're fighting against specifically Project Nimbus, which is a surveillance project in Israel that's powered by companies like Google and their cloud platforms. And basically, they staged a sit-in at one of the Google offices, and I think they were all fired or put on administrative leave and not paid.
Right.
So you really can't speak out. You're going to get materially punished.
Right. And there's been a couple of Google employees fired for both unionizing recently this year, attempting to unionize, and also fired for being anti-Zionist. So it's insane. Yeah. You yourself work within the software industry. Have you seen any pro-Zionism within your limited experience within it? Obviously, you can't speak for the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been employed since the genocide began back in last October, so I can't speak that much about like internal company politics or anything like that. I will say that most people in tech, unfortunately, are not that politically involved, which in itself is like a political stance you can take, right?
Yeah.
I don't think like because people in tech make so much money, their ideology is going to be more closer to like the bourgeoisie's ideology.
Absolutely.
More so than like the working class ideology. Yeah, but that's not to say there are people in tech like working to fight, you know, like Zionism, for example. It's just like much more rare, I think.
Absolutely. I think the second you start making good money, you sort of become this. You're sort of pressured into becoming not extreme, right? Like you're not like extremely conservative or extremely liberal. Of course, which the American overturn window is so fucked that for anybody who's actually a leftist, like a Marxist-Leninist, these are basically the same things. But you're sort of pressured within the American overturn window to become just this boring moderate that accepts the neoliberal system as it is and doesn't want much change.
Right, exactly.
Within it. I actually have a funny story. My boss, and I'm not in the tech industry. I work a corporate job, pencil pusher, whatever. And my boss has a very similar name to the party I'm trying to organize with. I'm onboarding with the PSL. So my boss texted me. I thought it was the dude I'm onboarding with the PSL with. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I read the party program and everything.
So what party are we talking about? Are we playing a pizza party or something? Like, how did your boss respond?
Yeah, and then he was like, what party program? And I went back through the text message. I'm like, oh shit, this is my boss.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. But he has had like funny takes like I prefer Trump over Biden, but I hate Trump's mean tweets, which is such like I think that's so descriptive of just this moderate neoliberal position that everybody within the business world, who makes good money is sort of pressured into like, yeah, I don't really care about genocide. Trump's, I prefer him, but I just don't like his mean tweets. It's funny. Do you think that, speaking of Democrats, Zionism, Kamala Harris, or how do you pronounce her name right? Kamala?
I think it's Kamala, like the emphasis on the K-A.
Kamala, yeah. I've been pronouncing her name wrong. Do you think Democrats are just as big of enemies to us as Republicans?
In the grand scheme of things, yeah, pretty much. I think, anyone who like upholds, they're pretty much our enemies. I did see a funny Reddit comment. It's not funny, it's kind of sad, honestly. But basically, it was like talking about how we need to vote for Kamala Harris. If the options were between 100% Hitler and 99% Hitler, I'm going to go with 99% Hitler every time.
Yeah.
I just thought that was like, that's kind of a crazy statement to make. Like, if our two options are 100% Hitler and 99% Hitler, like, maybe we should question the system that produced this outcome rather than like talking about which Hitler to vote for.
Yeah, maybe we should guillotine both the Hitlers,
Right, exactly. I do think like it's also like such a moderate neoliberal position to be like anti-violence in all its forms. Like if Trump really is going to be a fascist dictator like so many of the fearmongers say he is, the answer isn't to vote him out. It's not to perpetually vote him out for however long America continues to exist, right? The answer is to use some sort of force to remove that like fascist entity from our society. I don't think people are willing to accept that just yet.
Yeah. Also, it speaks to like how limited liberals' ideas of the world are. Like, what is fascism if not a tool of the bourgeois to protect their interests? And so Democrats and Republicans are just as easily able to implement in fascism. And we've seen that fascism come from the Democrats. Like they say 99% Hitler and 100% Hitler. Kamala Harris is already 100% Hitler. Like if your red line is not genocide for Hitler, then what is it? She just Hitler that says nice words about trans people. And it's empty. Her words about trans people, her words about minorities are empty. They don't hold any weight to them. I don't actually believe that the Democrats are change anything. So
right, yeah. If you look at like Biden's policy, you can see that it's just not true. I mean, even if you look outside of Palestine, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. What'd you say?
Yeah. And what I was just going to say is obviously the Democratic politicians are unsavable monsters. I think Democratic voters, some of them do have a good heart. Like they can be converted. They can be shown the light. Not all of them. Not all of them. A lot of them are deathly subsumed within the hegemony to a way that they can't be shifted. And also they have a material interest in backing it up, like the middle class whites, as you were saying. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of them do have good hearts in good places. They're just so normalized into a society where genocide is okay, where two choices are the only options, that they can't imagine anything broader than that. And our job is to show them that we can.
Right, yeah, definitely. I think so many of the conversations are just dominated around this: who do we pick within this two-party system, rather than like, how do we organize to get rid of this two-party system and like do something that's beneficial for everyone, not just like a small handful of people in America.
Yeah. And do you have anything more to say, or?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts about like the psychology of these people whose minds like seemingly can't be changed. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I was recently listening to. Do you know who Judith Butler is?
No.
They're like a gender theorist type of philosopher.
Oh, okay.
And they talk about this idea called like the phantasm. And basically, the phantasm is an erroneous conclusion that's drawn to hold a contradiction within itself. So in like Marxist ideology, right? Like if we have a belief and then we experience something that is in contradiction to that belief, we update that belief. And that's like the dialectical process, right?
Yeah.
But what a phantasm is it basically stops the dialectical process from happening. So basically, if your beliefs are at odds with your reality, you create this thing called the phantasm. And it's just basically a conclusion that makes no sense, but it can somehow contain the contradiction so you don't have to change your world. So the example within the gender theory space, the reason we've seen so much like anti-trans ideology crop up is because people can't handle the truth about like the failures of neoliberal capitalism. So they'll come to the conclusion. So like, let's say you're working class, right?
Yeah.
Your premise is that you think the free market is a good thing. And then the material reality you observe is that your boss is just laying off people left and right. You're suddenly found out without a job. And basically the economy around you is kind of not doing that well. So the correct maybe conclusion to draw is maybe the free market capitalism, it's not so good. But the phantasm that like these people create is that like, it's actually trans people who are to blame for this economy. You know, men are turning into women, like no one wants to work anymore because men aren't real men. And all these sorts of like weird conclusions that are drawn are the result of these people's inability to deal with like having to change their world.
Yeah.
And I guess it kind of makes sense because like, if you accept that like stuff like, free market capitalism, it's actually not so good. There are a lot of implications that come with that, such as like, what is my place in this like horrible system? Like, am I helping to uphold it? And a lot of people can't deal with those implications because it's like, maybe we are in some way a little bit culpable in all of this. And so basically like one thing I also want to drive home is like, it's not just Republicans with these crazy beliefs, it's liberals as well, like Democrats. So like, let's analyze like this fear mongering about Project 2025, right? If our premise is that like neoliberal democracy is a good thing, but our options are 100% Hitler and 99% Hitler, like the correct dialectical process here would be like, okay, maybe like we have to update our original premise, like neoliberal democracy maybe is actually kind of shit. But like that if you want to change that premise, like it comes with like a lot of unpacking, right? like, oh man, like everything I learned was wrong. Like it's kind of like a crazy step to make. So instead, I think people construct this phantasm. And we've seen it recently with Kamala Harris. Like Kamala Harris will stop Project 2025. It'll stop the rise of fascism, which is like, if about it, it doesn't make that much sense because like 2025 is not the last year of humanity. Like
Right.
if Kamala Harris wins, it's going to become Project 2029. And what do we do then? We just have to keep voting blue no matter who. And the problem with that is like, if you keep voting blue no matter who, they never have to concede to any of your demands ever. So the Democrats will just move farther and farther right until they're indistinguishable from Republicans if you keep voting blue no matter who, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you point out this logic to the people who are saying vote blue no matter who, their usual response is like, okay, then what's your solution, bro?
Right.
I don't know if you've seen this.
No, I've gotten so much of it. I've gotten so much of it. Like you don't have a solution. And like I always counter with, you don't have a solution. You don't have an actual solution to stop fascism, you know?
Right. Your conclusion makes no sense. But it's like people don't like when like their contradictions are pointed out because it means they have to update their worldview, which they don't want to do for various reasons.
Yeah, the phantasm idea is interesting. I also think, of course, first of all, your class plays a role into it. Your material incentives, let's say, like everybody is working class,
for sure.
But some people are better off working class people. But I also think that we are in the Western world the products of the greatest indoctrination in history, in my opinion. You know, Soviets, North Koreans, Chinese, you know, whatever evil authoritarian government you can think of, Goebbels could not have dreamed of creating such an indoctrination as liberalism has done to our youth's minds, right? We're this country that's based on freedom and democracy, and yet we were founded by slave owners, right? We're a country where everybody is equal and has equal opportunities, but we stand on genocide in native land. We're a country where we can have a black president, but that black president sends bombs overseas, and the people who are receiving those bombs don't know the difference between a white president and a black president. But it is so painful to have everything taught to you because it becomes part of your personal identity, right? Liberalism is part of your personal identity. It is who you are as a human being.
People don't realize that, I think. People don't realize how much they've been indoctrinated.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a big part of why it's so hard.
It is. It is almost like an ego death to deconstruct everything you have been taught. It deconstructs yourself as a person, and it places you in this system of capitalism where you're kind of privileged. And it sucks to admit that you're privileged, right? It sucks to admit
it does.
that you're on top of this system. And even I have to like contend with the fact that I'm privileged to some extent, being not a global South worker, and I get, you know, better off. I get boosted. My lifestyle is basically boosted by global Southern workers. And it just sucks. It just sucks to realize the truth that you were in a shitty system and everything else. I don't know. Any threads?
Right. I think comparing it to an ego death is like pretty appropriate. And I think that's why people construct phantasms instead of updating their beliefs. It's because like, an ego death is like, it can be like a really stressful thing, right? It's like, you're just basically have to like kill a part of yourself that believes in like all these like maybe erroneous ideas. And people aren't maybe willing to do that. And I think it's our job as people who maybe see the truth closer to what it actually is to like hold these people's hands as they sort of unpack capitalism and liberalism as ideologies.
Yeah.
I personally, like, I struggle with this a little bit. I don't have the patience to hold these people's hands a lot of the time. Right? It's like really frustrating. It's like, oh my God, why can't you just like use logic to come to the same conclusions that I have? But I think it's very critical work. And I think like that's something I need to work on. It's something I think generally people on the left need to work on. It's like,
absolutely,
if we want to win people over, we just have to hold their hand. Like it's annoying. I'm like, I don't want to lecture these white people. Like, I have to teach them whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a sentiment I've seen a lot, but we have to do it if we want progress to happen.
Yeah. And I think the internet is structured around not useful discussions is structured around arguments and just
and rage and anger.
Right. Yeah. And I'm guilty of this too. I'm awful at talking to liberals. I'm awful at talking to Republicans.
I think we're the same in that regard for sure.
Yeah. Like if one's in my comment section, I'm playing around with them. I'm just goofing off, trolling them. So this is something that we have to work on ourselves, obviously.
Right.
But I think the internet is so structured around like points, right? Like likes, getting dunks on somebody, ratioing somebody, that like constructive conversations where we're actually holding these people's hands and moving them towards a better dialectical understanding of the world around them. Doesn't really happen, and we're more so just goofing on them and hoping to get some points. And I think that's very fascinating what you said about the phantasm, because if everybody thinks logically, right, this system of capitalism fucking sucks for us, the working class, right? The most logical conclusion is that we, in a world of have-nots and haves, in a world where one minority owns all the means of production and the vast majority don't, that the vast majority grabs the means of production and wheels them into their own hands. But people construct these phantasms because, again, it's so painful to unlearn that, because movies, education, your family, the nuclear family.
It becomes hard to enjoy life, literally. Like
it does.
All the nice things you have, it's like, oh man, like buying these bananas, it's like, if you know the history of bananas, it's like, I feel bad for eating this now.
Yeah.
And it becomes like so much harder. Like life just becomes a little bit like harder mentally, I think.
It becomes draining a little bit, yeah. Because it puts you in this juxtaposition with society around you. You're suddenly an enemy to society around you, in a way. Like you're against everything around you. And I think people just want comfortability. So they'll look at the genocide in Gaza, and it's so mentally straining that they'll say, you know what? I don't care what's happening overseas. Because seeing dead babies, you have deep within you, everybody has a human empathy, but you got to layer that in comfortability. You can't. It's so hard to just accept what's happened in Gaza, right? For the average person, that puts a mental strain on everybody. So they'll say like, oh, you know what? I don't care what happens overseas. You know what? They're terrorists. You know what? Hamas. You know what?
Yeah, all these could be explained as phantasms. Like they're just not even true if you analyze it.
Of course,
but we just have to construct this because we can't face like the fact that dead babies. And babies are literally getting killed, and it's like kind of our fault as Americans that this is happening.
Yeah, that all of us share a little bit of responsibility in this.
Exactly.
In our inaction, whatever action we have done, it hasn't been enough, and I think that's a painful pill to swallow. It's almost like teaching Nazis to have humility, right? Like after World War II, all of the Nazis had to be re-educated, and of course, in West Germany, it was done terribly. But they were brought into classes. They were shown films about the concentration camps because a lot of them hadn't been in concentration camps. And they had to learn what evil things they had done. And I just don't think that's possible for a lot of Americans. That's a very painful pill to swallow, that the project you've been part of. And also, I think what's very hard to swallow is that if Kamala Harris has no problem beheading babies, like ripping them apart, having their guts turned into mush overseas, she has no problem with bombing your babies as long as it's for the profit motive. She doesn't care about your babies as little as she cares about babies overseas. And we sort of have this paternalistic attachment to our government, right? Like mother, son, on that talk show. What did that lady say? We need a Mama Harris or something like that.
Yeah, that was crazy. I think it was Drew Barrymore who said that.
My mom watches her talk show sometimes. It's such gross neoliberal garbage, light. But my mom eats it up, obviously. But it's painful that to be separated from mom, to learn that the government, our mom or dad, is evil, and that everything that they're telling us is evil. Like I don't think a lot of people want to accept that.
Definitely not.
If you want to pick up on any of these threads.
Yeah, I think I think part of why it's unacceptable is because maybe we haven't done a good enough job offering a third alternative, because I think both Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, they both think the other side is the evil one and their side is the good one. I think they think that because it's like, well, the Republicans are evil, the Democrats oppose them, so the Democrats must be good, for example. And like, obviously Republicans think the same in the opposite direction. And I think like our job as leftists or Marxist-Leninists is to like offer to markets really a third option that isn't both of these two things. It's to change, like kind of the cultural hegemony of this two-party system. Like maybe
Absolutely.
we can do something outside of this and presents it as like a viable thing.
Yeah. And I think our biggest struggle right now in America is not in like we're not in the global South. We can't do like a protracted people's war with like, we grab a bunch of Maoist guerrillas and in, Brooklyn,
right.
or Times Square, we start like shooting around. Like we're not at that stage in the Western world. Our greatest struggle right now is ideological. And we have been sort of bad at offering an alternative to Democrats and Republicans. I think that is where really our left has failed. I've been reading a lot of Fred Hampton's speeches recently for a project I'm doing, and Fred Hampton was so adamant that regular people understand Marxist-Leninism and dialectics. They just need to be taught to practice it. And how do we get them to practice it? How do we get them to practice communism and socialism? Through programs, free breakfast programs, through free health clinics. By teaching people through practice these things, they become communists without ever touching Marx or Engels. They already have it in them. And of course, that isn't to say you shouldn't read Marx or Engels. But if we want to access regular people, go up to them, meet them where they are, right? Like if they're somebody whose family is about to be evicted, help them form a tenants union, and they learn Marxism through that, through forming the tenant union, through putting it into practice. And of course, they do have to eventually touch Marx and Engels, but they've sort of learned communism without ever reading Das Kapital or something like that.
Right. I think that's also another shortcoming of leftism, especially online. People will read a ton of theory and then not have any emphasis on practicing or like doing the struggle on the streets, like forming unions. Because I think that's how like everyday people, do arrive at the ideas of socialism and communism. I think like anyone who has to engage really seriously against these oppressive systems will naturally arrive at communism as the conclusion.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of it is like getting more people involved.
Absolutely.
With practice. And that's why I actually built a different website called Join a Local Org. I haven't really been maintaining it, but the purpose of that website is to connect to people with like orgs in their area who may like be struggling with regards to causes that they care about, such as like immigrant rights, police brutality, or like a labor struggle, for example. It's something that I want to continue working on, but I'm actually working on like something else right now. It's taking precedence. But hopefully soon, I can get back and join the
Do you want to tease what you're working on, or is it under wraps?
No, it's not under wraps. Basically, what I'm working on is I'm part of a organization here in Seattle called the Seattle Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Basically, we're fighting for community control of the police. And it's not police abolition, but basically, it's like maybe the strongest form of police accountability. It basically allows like people to vote for a committee that can actually make binding decisions with regards to the police. So like this community council could like vote to shrink the police budget, and the police budget would be shrinked. That's like currently not really a thing anywhere in the country yet. Like police accountability that's strong. So that's what we're working on. The thing that I'm building is basically like a digital tool that any like org can use. It basically like can scan like public data and like send out alerts to people if anything changes. So the use case that we're focusing on is like if we find cops that are doing like excessive Terry stops, for example, and they're stopping mostly Black people, it can send us an alert, and then we can publish these findings. Like, hey, this officer is racist. Like we need to do something about this. for example. But like more broadly speaking, it can allow any org to send out any text or email notifications or campaigns based on any arbitrary levels of data.
Nice.
I don't know. It's kind of vague, but I think the use cases will become more obvious as like the product develops.
Nice. Yeah. I think the internet is just a beautiful tool for calling out things like we couldn't have done this in the 70s, right? Like calling out random policemen on their bullshit. The internet has become this beautiful tool of public accountability in a way that I don't think would have ever seen before, and organizing people in ways that we would have never seen before. Suddenly, I'm able to organize with people in Italy and Romania, just like all over the world. It truly is beautiful. We'll see how long it lasts. Of course, like they're not going to allow this freedom of speech forever, especially once it becomes a big enough thorn in the neck of the state.
We're already starting to see that. I think TikTok once again is cracking down on anti-Zionism form. I think like people who are around for the early internet, I feel like kind of laments like what the internet has become. Mm-hmm. This like highly corporatized, like advertisement driven space instead of like community oriented spaces, which is what it used to be maybe in the early 2000s.
It used to be like a series of chat rooms, things like that.
People just hanging out on digital spaces and sharing ideas.
Talking to each other, like-minded people, just exchanging ideas.
Right. Or even not like-minded people. I feel like it's really easy to fall into echo chambers now, whereas like in the day it was a little bit harder. You have to just interact with people who are not like you.
Yeah. And I think the internet has been so important in shaping so many people's ideologies. I mean, of course, there is the issue of echo chambers. It's so easy to fall into an echo chamber today. I think that's the goal of neoliberalism, is to isolate you so much that you fall into this echo chamber of like-minded peers where you're not challenged at all. But it has also introduced so many people to Marxist-Leninism in a way that they wouldn't have been before. Like, if the world was still run by cable news and Hollywood, which is where most people would be getting their information from, I don't think most people would be Marxists, communists, anarchists. Like, they wouldn't be able to challenge the predominant society around them. So I think the internet has been beautiful in that way.
I guess, I don't know. I don't have that great of an understanding of American history, but, I do feel like during, the civil rights era, there was, it felt like what appears to be, a greater movement towards, Marxist-Leninism, socialism in general, than there is now. And they didn't have the internet back then. So do you think, maybe the internet has, some negative side effects that we're not, considering? Why do you think, they were able to have so much success back then with the internet?
I think just basically the civil rights era was just a perfect storm that awakened so many people who were just done with the contradictions of America, right? Imperialism, colonialism, racism, the glaring contradictions of America on the world stage, challenging the Soviet Union and saying we're an equal democratic society, and Black people not being able to drink from the same fountain. Was just so great that it was able to politically motivate people in a way that they challenged Americanism itself. And you are right, a lot of the civil rights era bled directly into the Black Panthers and these radical Black youths who read Marx, who read Lenin, who looked to Mao Zedong and Kim Il-sung and said, you know what, we're going to have proletarian internationalism and we're going to fight for Black rights this way. I think why it's so much harder now is that the glaring contradictions of America are more hidden. So obviously we've still got Jim Crow basically through the police system, the racist drug policies, but the state says it's equal, right? On the books, everything is equal and fair, but in practice it's not. And so it's a lot harder for people to connect the dots between the direct racism and the state has a lot more room for error. Right. The shooting of Sonia Massey. Oh, the policeman can just say, I was afraid of the boiling water. Right. It's not because of racism. I was just afraid of boiling water. And so the state is given a lot more room for error where the contradictions are not as obvious for people to be able to be awakened.
So I guess a follow-up question then is do you think there's a case for accelerationism? Because I think accelerationism would reveal these contradictions in a faster manner. And because of climate change, I think we are kind of on the clock. Like, we can't take too long. The world will literally end. As we know it, I guess. Like, people will still be around, but it'll be vastly different.
My opinions on accelerationism is that people who promote it, like voting for Trump or whatever, making conditions worse, end up being accidentally useful idiots for fascism. Because just because you make contradictions of a society worse, just because you take away workers' rights, doesn't mean they magically gain class consciousness, right? It just means that we inch closer towards fascism. What I am a big believer of is that our rights are going to be taken away irregardless of whether or not we're pushing the gas on the pedal. Our state is going to deteriorate towards fascism, whether or not we're pushing the gas on the pedal. So we should be organizing workers, getting them class consciousness, getting them to be ready for that fascism rather than supporting that fascism. And also, it's so contradictory when average people see Marxist-Leninists saying, hell yeah, I'm voting for Trump, so that you can gain class consciousness. That just confuses average people about what we're really fighting.
That's not going to win anyone over.
Yeah. So that's my argument against accelerationism. Let capitalism deteriorate on its own. We don't need any help to do it. Let's fight that deterioration, and in that process, get people conscious.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I was just asking, for the sake of the viewer who might be like accelerationist, for example. I think it actually like makes logical sense if you don't think about it that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you summed it up pretty nicely.
Yeah. I think another reason that, going back to that, our left is so weak right now is that we're in a post-Soviet world. Who was the Black Panther Party looking towards when they were forming their ideology? It was the Soviet Union. It was the other side in the Cold War. And so communist parties all over the world have sort of lost their steam. And we are in the structure of rebuilding a completely destroyed left. One that's been cointelproed to all hell, one that's been shot and repressed by the state. Like so many Black Panthers were killed. Fred Hampton, I'm talking about before, was killed when he was 21. Tons of Black Panthers were just randomly killed by the FBI. And so we're starting at square zero again, right? We're slowly building up from square zero from a left that is before even the Gilded Age, right? Like 1917, before the Red Scares. So we're in a post-apocalyptic world trying to rebuild up everything about the left. And that's why I don't think we have the Black Panther presence, even with online spreading Marxism.
Right. But like maybe in 10 years it could happen.
It could very easily.
Like there could be a new Black
so
Panther
fast these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little worried because it does seem like fascism is like rising exponentially, especially with like the decaying material conditions of like your average American. I think that's one thing like a lot of liberals are maybe blind to is like things actually got a lot worse for a lot of Americans under Biden. And like most people aren't that politically informed or educated, so they'll just like observe things around them and be like, yeah, things are worse under Biden than versus Trump. So why would I vote Biden? And I think a lot of liberals don't recognize that. That's how like most Americans base their politics off of. It's based off of what they experience. Like fascism doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because like the conditions are getting worse for a lot of these people, and like because the left is maybe not offering a very good solution at the moment, they'll just turn to fascism, like to the far right instead.
Yeah. I also think partly it's just that it's so much easier to become right-wing than left-wing. In order to become a leftist, you have to, in order to become a Marxist-Leninist, you have to unlearn everything you were taught, right? North Korea is
yeah, I guess we did speak about that.
Yeah. Like, North Korea isn't evil, China isn't robots everywhere, and then becoming a right-wing is so much easier. It's you're at home, your dad is the leader and your mom is subservient, and you're like, oh yeah, women's rights are bad, like it's basically everything you've been taught. And I think the right, I think one thing the left is really bad with that the right's excelling at is the culture war, because
unfortunately,
so many of us are like, we're above the culture war, right? And I mean, I'm not going to make culture war content. I'm very focused on like people who are really enmeshed in Marxist-Leninism. But we do need more people who are communists and work out and make working out content. We need a lot more people.
I think that's one thing Hassan is doing really well.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like on purpose he makes himself look very attractive. He like works out. He like dresses well. I think part of that is fighting this image of communism that's very white, left, and online. Maybe they don't work. I think you cut out for a second there. I don't know.
Yeah. But I got what you were saying. Hassan is making himself attractive, going to the working out demographic. But I do think if you're interested in anything online and you're a young man, you watch a working out video, suddenly your feed is filled with anti-SJW videos. And the guy who's like roided out and works out, he's anti-SJW too. And then you fall into the far right pipeline. If you're doing movie reviews, suddenly you get recommended a snarky guy, or even the movie reviewer himself is like, why is this woman yada, yada, yada in the film?
Right. So it's so sinister in these online spaces. Like,
absolutely.
You suddenly just like trip once and then suddenly you're falling down this whole right rabbit hole.
And so I think communists are losing the culture war. So I think if you are Marxist-Leninist and you are interested in films, you're interested in working out, you're interested in whatever, make content that's not necessarily political, but sprinkles a little bit of your ideology in there. Because we need people like you to just push people to question themselves, question the ideology around them, from fashion to whatever,
I think that's why talking about celebrities is important, despite what people online like. I think a lot of people who complain about us talking about celebrities so much, they would just want us to talk about political theory and geopolitics. But the thing is, like, those things don't have any sort of organic engagement at all. Like, so we have to like talk about Taylor Swift to sprinkle in some like Marxist ideas or like anti-imperialist ideas, right? We can't just talk about anti-imperialism. I think a lot of like LeftTube or like BreadTube, they do a pretty good job. They will talk about culture, but also have like anti-capitalism as kind of like a subtext that sneaks up on the viewer.
Yeah.
And I think we need more of it. I think like LeftTube is like much, much smaller compared to like those like alt-right anti-SJW workout bros who are like dominating the YouTube space.
Yeah. I think BreadTube is a double-edged sword because it's both great at getting people to sort of fall into leftism, but it's also creates its own phantasms, right? Like people like Vosh or Destiny, people fall into these pipelines and they stop before they actually get to a real dialectical analysis of the world around them,
right?
And they become like these sort of like lefty Joe Biden supporters, or
I guess I don't count those two as part of LeftTube, but I suppose maybe technically speaking.
They market themselves as LeftTube. So I think it is dangerous to rely on the structures that we have now because it does BreadTube and everything does sort of create those phantasms, does stop people from further educating themselves. It gets them like halfway there. So I think we need like really dedicated Marxist-Leninists who work out and like, hey guys, this is how you do bicep curls and this is what you should eat. And punch a fascist, just like
It is interesting because I do feel like there's no one in the LeftTube space that identifies publicly as a Marxist-Leninist. I know people like think Hassan might be, but he's never come out and said that, which is interesting. I wonder if there's like a reason for that. Maybe the algorithm punishes those two words. If you say Marxism or Leninism, like, you might get demonetized or like
his fan base does this weird half thing where they're like, oh yeah, the Red Army was great, but Stalin was evil. Like he plays that line very funnily. Sean's the only other left-tuber I can think of who's most likely a closeted Marxist-Leninist. If you know Sean and his essays. I'm familiar with him. He does really well researched essays, and a lot of my friends started watching Sean and ended up Marxist-Leninist. Like, he opened the door for them perfectly. Through these, like, first of all, he started out deconstructing anti-SJW videos and just showing how they were clips. And then he did essays on Hiroshima and Palestine. And he's a really wonderful resource. I think the culture struggle is something that we're so often we're like, we're too good for that. right? And we cannot be too good for that. And
yeah, we just want to tell people to go read theory and go outside and expect that to be enough.
expect it to be enough, right?
Like,
right. And
yeah, that's we can't just be doing those things.
go read Das Kapital, bozo. You know,
Right.
that we need to teach people how to practice Marxism, and I think part of that just begins with the culture struggle. And Taylor Swift holds enormous power. If she tomorrow said, "There's a genocide happening in Palestine, let's support the Palestinians," millions of white middle class teenage girls, for the first time, would be class conscious. It would be amazing, right? So I think, continuing to pressure Taylor Swift, Pharrell Williams, all these people who are meshed within Hollywood is important. Is so important. If you want to pick up on any of those threads, maybe.
Yeah. I guess, one thing that I did want to do is pivot to long form on YouTube, doing like video essay work instead of just like posting short form on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think TikTok, it's so hard to explore like any complex ideas in like the amount of time that you're given on TikTok. Like, how can I talk about Taylor Swift but also like have like anti-capitalist subtext and also talk about like X, Y, or Z in like under a minute? Like, I can't do all of that. So that's one thing that I do want to do, is switch to long form YouTube content. And I think one thing that I've seen done pretty well is like using like movies or like TV as a talking point for like exploring like concepts like hegemony, capitalism, and stuff like that. And that's like something that I'm personally interested in as well. Like,
absolutely,
I would much prefer to make that type of content. Just like, like who do we cancel today on TikTok?
Right.
Yeah.
Shows like The Boys, One Piece,
right.
These are great jumping off points. You can't really get leftist content out of Dragon Ball, I don't think, but you could try, I think.
You can try. I mean, there's political ideas baked into every single piece of media, right? So you could really talk about anything.
Yeah. And I think part of celebrity worship is just that it goes back to what Nietzsche said. We have killed God. And what he meant by that was that like we killed the idea of God. We've entered into this atheistic, scientific world, but the human desire for having that religious figure is still there, and we replace that with these celebrities, right? Taylor Swift, who else? Kanye. After everything that Kanye has done, his fan base is still so crazy about Ye.
Right. Even our politicians have elevated themselves to celebrity status.
Yeah.
I mean, like, would like your politician, like maybe yesteryear, do like rap girl summer like marketing? Like, probably not. And obviously, like Trump is crossed over from being a celebrity into like being a politician. But I would argue he's still mostly a celebrity.
Yeah.
He's not interested in policy at all.
I know. This human desire to have like a godlike figure. We so often talk about the cult of personality of the Kim family. But Kamala Harris, Trump, Taylor Swift have these insane cult of personalities because we don't even get shit out of them, right? Like at least like argue with the Kim family, you get free healthcare and a guaranteed apartment.
Yeah, you get an apartment. Like I get nothing from.
It's not the best apartment, but it does the job with the limited materials that they have. You get free healthcare. You get a guaranteed fucking job. What the fuck do I get out of worshiping Taylor Swift? She's just replacing God for me, and all I get is shitty white girl music. I'm sorry to Taylor Swift, but and Trump and Kamala Harris likewise.
One thing I do want to do less of is hating. I think I do too much hating. I think hating like it's good for attracting some audiences, but I think it alienates a lot of people. Like when I hate on Taylor Swift, right? Like a lot of Taylor Swift fans are like working class. They're like just your average teenage girl. Maybe it's like I don't want to alienate. People. Right, exactly. Like what am I doing hating Taylor Swift? Like this person's never going to listen to anything I ever say again in the future.
Yeah.
But that's hard. I think hating is just kind of fun, especially as a content creator. I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. Yeah, right. It's like definitely engagement farming definitely a thing.
Yeah.
With like all this rage baiting and stuff.
I accidentally tapped into that with by releasing a bunch of anti-Harris content, and I was just speaking my mind. Like, I didn't even realize I was going to kick such a hornet's nest, but I got so many views from just people who were enraged at me calling Kamala Harris a genocider, and like they're so angry. But it was so great for the algorithm. The algorithm absolutely loved that these people were saying "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," things like that.
Right. And the thing is, it's like I fell into that trap too, and like my videos didn't get that many likes because I feel like I was too negative. But yeah, I think I need to tone it down on the hating, because if I want to convince these people, right, hating on them is not going to change their mind.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously have to pick your battles. Some people are easier to convince than others.
Right. I do think the people responding, they're like really entrenched. But the thing is, it's like your average viewer who doesn't comment anything, like they might see that interaction and then think negatively of you without even saying.
Yeah. Your job is to get the gear turning on somebody who's like half on the fence, in my opinion.
Right, exactly.
Just to play.
I don't think, arguing with people or like rage baiting is necessarily a good tool to do that, even if it is good for the algorithm.
Yeah. The algorithm loves it, but it's not. It wasn't very effective, right? Like our conversations went nowhere. I called them a genocider, a horrible person. They called me the same. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. Right. But yeah, we have sort of replaced God with Taylor Swift, with whatever, and these people hold. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like we are so normalized to just waste our cash for the bourgeois, right? Like we're so normalized to just pay for overpriced things and get our surplus value stolen from us by the bourgeois, that we are now normalized into donating to Kamala Harris and getting nothing out of it. Like what the fuck are people? What is the psychology you think of people who are donating to Kamala Harris right now?
I think it's a fear-based worldview. These people have a fear-based worldview, and the thing that they fear is Donald Trump. It's not even necessarily like his policies or the things that happened under Trump. They fear like the idea of Trump and like Trumpism itself, if that makes sense. And I think that's why they're doing it. It's just out of maybe kind of an irrational fear. I wouldn't say completely irrational. I mean, there are things that Trump did objectively. But those things, a lot of those things happened under Biden too, which is why I call it irrational.
Yeah. I think the Democrats, so many average people are absolutely afraid of the state of the world right now. Their politics are just...
For sure. I mean, we're living in the end of the world. Like, it's a stressful time.
Yeah.
Especially Gen Z, who's like by the time they're in old age, like the earth might be incinerated. Like your average summer day might be 105.
Yeah.
By the time they're old. And that's horrifying, right?
It is horrifying. And people,
if you just like give into your fear, like you just end up doing irrational actions, such as supporting Kamala Harris or like donating to her, instead of like, let's say, organizing a labor union at your workplace, which would do like benefit you multitudes
more. Yeah.
And voting for Kamala Harris.
The Hampton Institute said one general strike across America would do more than 1,000 years of voting, something like that.
Oh Twitter. Yeah.
And they were absolutely right. Yeah. But I think it is a fear-based phantasm where it's like, I'm so afraid of what Trump's going to do. I'm so afraid of what Trump's going to do. I'm so sorry of what's going to happen. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris out of fear. You can feel the fear in so many liberals' words.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you got to vote for Kamala. It's the end of the world. And the world is ending, but their solution is wrong. Their analysis of what's causing the end of the world is wrong. And I think...
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I think Trump is the greatest thing to happen to the Democratic Party. Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh, yeah. Like, Kamala Harris is breaking fundraising records because of Donald Trump. And yeah, like, she's probably having a field day because of that. But yeah, I think this phantasm around voting is a result of, it's just like, if we were to acknowledge the real reasons why the world is ending, it would make us feel really hopeless, depressed, whatever, like, feels like there's nothing we can do, feels insurmountable. Like, people don't want to face. So I think they turn to like, voting will work, even though it has never worked.
but they can't imagine ever doing anything more than that. And I think our goal should be to show them that we can achieve something beyond this, right? Yeah. We can achieve so much more if we just break our minds out of this two-party system. And you have to, it's like you said, we have to like very carefully and gently guide these people out of the phantasms that they've created. And some people will never get past that phantasm, but our goal is to get people who are on the fence, who are sort of get that seed planted in their head that this system is bullshit, that, yada, 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 things like that.
Right. How do you feel about the MAGA communists? I don't know if you know about the MAGA communist movement. People like Jackson Hinkle, I think, for example. I think they're trying to do a thing where they're trying to gently guide people out of conservatism rather than liberalism into communism.
Yeah. I've got a whole episode coming out about them. Yeah. But to put my thoughts briefly, they accidentally fall into tailism. So Marxist-Leninist goal is to guide the working class. It's both to have your hand on the pulse of the working class. Obviously, we have to remain democratic. Yeah. But if the working class is allowed to do its politics on its own, basically the best it ever achieves is a trade union that becomes enmeshed within the state, right? So in America, that would becomes enmeshed within the Democratic Party machine. So we have to guide the working class towards revolution, teach them that we have to break this system. Tailism, what it does is it becomes enmeshed within that idea that, the masses have that's going to lead them towards nowhere. And that's what the MAGA communists are trying to do. They sort of become enmeshed within patriotism. America is so great, yada, yada, and try to guide the working class somewhere else. That's such a weird contradiction to try to do that it's going to lead nowhere. Like trying to conflate American patriotism with Stalinism makes no sense. I don't think so.
Yeah. So you think eventually they're going to arrive at a contradiction and they can't really escape it without changing their ideology.
The whole ideology is built on such great contradictions. Communism stands for everything that America doesn't. That trying to combine communism and patriotism is just such a big rupture that I think they're going to accidentally end up at fascism. And I think they're well-meaning people, right, that are just confused. I think Haas is a bad actor. I think Eddie Liger, though, he's a guy who is so well-meaning but is so unable to deconstruct himself, right? Like he's unable to recognize that America is a settler colonial project, that he as a white person is more privileged than Native Americans. And he's had some controversial statements about Native American genocide. And so I think he's just a person who almost got to class consciousness, but is unable to deconstruct himself because it's a painful ego death. Deconstructing your white privilege and male privilege and things like that.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah. But do you have any thoughts on MAGA communism or ACP or whatever?
Yeah, I guess I would think the strategy makes sense on surface level, but it makes sense that I feel like a lot of conservatives are actually kind of close to the point. A lot of them hate big tech, for example, and you're so close. Just leave the racism behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think part of why those movements don't work is because they don't address things such as racism. And racism is if you don't address it, it becomes a problem in your movement. It'll basically just tank your entire movement. It's not going to succeed. I think this is a problem even non-MAGA communists fall into, especially in online spaces. One thing I see a lot is there's no struggle but class struggle.
Class reductionism.
No. Yeah, it's people do struggle outside of their class identity, right? And you notice the only people that tend to say these things are white men. Because if you're on the left and you're not in the white man demographic, obviously you're gonna have struggles outside of just class. And that's not to say classism, racism, patriarchy, they're not related, they're not interconnected. Just not acknowledging patriarchy or racism and trying to build a communist movement off it, you're just gonna only attract white dudes, and that's not a movement. You're not liberating anyone with just white dudes.
I think it's just so painful to deconstruct yourself, because becoming a leftist is just deconstructing your identity. And again, it goes back to that ego death, deconstructing yourself as a white man, and everything that you've been raised up to believe is just painful, and I think a lot of people are just completely unable to do that. Fred Hampton spoke about it beautifully, where he said, like, yes, we are for black power, for yellow power, for white power. Well, he didn't say white power, obviously.
Right.
That's a different idea. But we are for all these races. We recognize that capitalism is the root of slavery and everything else, but we can't ignore slavery, everything else. Like that is.
Right.
And so many
Exactly.
black Marxists have dubbed black workers as sub-proletarians, right? So like proletarians who are further exploited than regular proletarians. I think that's a very important distinction that we need to hear. And, I myself have to deconstruct internalized racism, internalized homophobia, internalized ableism. We all have it to some extent.
Right.
So that's why I always listen to black Marxists. That's why I always listen to disabled Marxists. It's important to just open up your mind to these people.
Right, exactly. I feel like those voices tend to be like the most insightful because, they live at the intersection of a lot of different oppressions within America.
Yeah.
So it's like if we combine all their ideas, like we'll have a pretty good picture of why the system is and what we need to do to fix it. I think Fred Hampton was like really good at this in practice. Like he was able to unite so many different groups under the Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah, the Rainbow Coalition.
I always like to tell people this because it's like I feel like it's the closest we got to like an example of like true solidarity among like, every single group.
Yeah.
He initially united like a Latino gang, I think, the Black Panthers, and like a working class like white leftist group. Which is crazy. I've never heard of something like that happening. And then later on, like different minority groups started joining as well.
I know in California specifically, they worked with the United Farm Workers, so Cesar Chavez. They were having strikes, and basically they didn't actually, it's kind of crazy. They didn't want white people buying grapes because the grapes were part of the exploitive industry. So Black Panthers showed up to grocery stores with guns because it was legal at that time. So it was to scare white people from buying these exploitative grapes that everybody was supposed to be boycotting. And then they worked with Yellow Panthers. There was some group called the Yellow Panthers, or it was an Asian American group. It had the name Yellow in it. So they worked with white people. And they actually worked with a white organization in the South that, funnily enough, was Marxist-Leninist and everything like that, but had the Confederate flag on it. It was called like the Dixie Coalition or something like that.
I see.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
But they were, from everything I've read, they were not like MAGA communists or anything. They just used the Confederate flag for whatever reason because that's so emblematic of people from the South.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. So it is probably the closest. And what's so important about the Black Panthers was that they did American solidarity and they did international solidarity. They said, we're not free until Vietnamese are free. We're not free until Iraqis are free. I think that's so hard for people to do right now. A lot of people are like, I got to protect my interests. Fuck the Palestinians. Fuck the Sudanese. Fuck the Congolese. It's my interest, and I got to protect myself. And it's fear. It's fear, basically. And that's what the bourgeois want us to do. They want us to be so afraid that we're focusing on our own family over everybody else. And that's very natural to do, but it's also such a wrong analysis that we have to teach people that, no, your family's not going to be safe until Congolese people are safe and Palestinian people are safe and things like that.
Right. Yeah. I think countering fear-based ideologies, we have to offer like a hope-based one. I think that's, I feel like hope-based ideologies, they're just genuinely more exciting. Like no one wants to buy into a fear-based ideology. They just happen to do it.
Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Obama's campaign was built on like hope and change or whatever. It was like incredible marketing, even though his 10 years president wasn't all that great. But I think that's one thing like we should try and offer people is like hope for the future. And like, I think we often emphasize like loss and like death and like pain to try and convince people. But I think one thing that we're not doing as much is like talking about wins like leftists have made throughout the world in America. I think that's something we need to emphasize more because we have to demonstrate to people like, if we struggle outside of this like neoliberal system, we can make wins, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's one thing I also want to emphasize in content going future. And I hope like other content creators do that as well.
Yeah, giving people hope and things like that.
Right.
Right now, I think what the Democrat Republican fight is Trump's good at giving people false hope. Right, that we're gonna make America great again. That we're gonna
right. His campaign is based off of hope, kind of, in a weird way.
It is.
And the Democrats is based off of fear, and I think that's why it's like harder to mobilize what should be like the Democratic base or whatever.
It's what we're seeing right now is hope versus primal fear. Primal hope that your conditions are going to get better as like a white working class person versus this primal fear that we're going to go into a fascist autocracy where people are going to get shot left and right. And that's not an awful fear to have. It is true that it's going to happen to some extent. I think it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot more limited than the Democrats are advertising it as. I think Trump is going to become very easily enmeshed within the liberal state, and it's going to self-regulate itself so that it's not as bad as being advertised. We should still recognize that it's bad. You know, I'm not downplaying it, but it's not like going to be like 1984-esque. That's going to come more in the future. Any kind of fascism like that. This is the beginning grounds of any kind of fascism like that. But it's this fight between hope and fear, false hope, I should add. No, I don't think Trump's actually offering a good solution, but a false solution in hope and fear. And honestly, my money is on the hope winning. I'm not going to lie. I feel like Trump is going to win. Nobody is excited about Kamala. It's absolutely just, I'm afraid. I'm so fucking afraid.
The only people excited about her are the people who are going to vote Democrat anyway. And the people who are afraid or maybe on the fence and like they're doing so very like reluctantly, but like any successful political movement can't be based in fear. No one is going to go do a revolution because they're afraid of something worse. They do a revolution because they have hope for something better. And I think that's why like a lot of like the revolutions we've seen in the past, it's like closely tied to anti-imperialism, closely tied to liberating the country from imperialist forces. It's because like those revolutions were won because those people had something to fight for. They were like, we dream of a world where like we're not under the imperialist boot anymore. It's like a hopeful message, right?
I'm dreaming of a world where my children are fed, right? Like it's so simple like that. I have a doctor, right? And that gave them so much hope. That gave them so much hope to just keep on fighting and even sacrifice their life. There's this very famous story of when the Vietnamese are fighting the French in the Battle of Diem Phu. I think I fucked up that pronunciation, definitely. But they're fighting the French in the Battle of Diem Phu. They're rolling up this. They grabbed an anti-aircraft missile from the French in a previous fight. They're rolling it up. Something goes wrong, and a Vietnamese man has to sacrifice his life and get crushed in between the gears of the machine to get it. Yeah, like it's insane. But he did that because he was like, I can create a better world for my children, right? Like even if I die, my children are gonna prosper, and my people are gonna prosper. And I just don't think that Democrats are offering that. They're like, fear. Everything is going to get worse. Vote us in. We can't offer you a good future, but it's fear, because it could get worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like among like people who are to the left of Democrat, I feel like we often fall into this trap. Like the only reason to do socialism, is to avoid fascism. And you know, that shouldn't be the only reason.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that's hard is like people in America do have like a lot of material privilege. So it is hard to convince people using hope, right? People are afraid of losing their like amenities or whatever, like having an iPhone or something.
I will say socialism in America is going to be absolutely awful for the middle class, the comfortable middle class. Like they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
What socialism in America is going to be for homeless people, for Native Americans, for minorities, who have been franchised. For middle class people in suburbia, it's going to be fucking awful because they've already got everything they need:
right.
doctors, food on the table, a roof over their head. So it's food vouchers are going to be food vouchers, and like these guarantees are going to be amazing for homeless people, for people who are on the fringes of society. It's going to be kind of awful for people who already have easy access to all of this, and suddenly you have to wait in line with all of the rest of the bums to get a slice of bread. You know, for the bum who's been on the street, I get free bread. And for the first time in my
Right.
life, I have guaranteed bread and coffee. For like somebody who's so used to getting that easily, it's I have to wait in line in front of this asshole, So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have to sell it. We have to sell it somehow. Yeah.
I think one maybe way to market this is, I think if the top 1% of America's wealth was redistributed, I think everyone would get, even the upper middle class people, like if we were just to do it evenly, everyone would get, I think, around $130,000 in their bank account. And that sounds like a pretty good deal for everyone who's not in the 1%, right? Like America is in like a state of hyper abundance, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think we're gonna, like, if socialism happened in America, I don't think anybody would be waiting in like bread lines necessarily. Like we already have an abundance of bread. We're throwing away our excess food.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I think what it would look like is like maybe the middle class, like their lives don't change that much. It might get slightly worse. They might not have the ability to purchase something like a Peloton, for example, but
yeah,
I think in general, like all the bad things we associate with communism, like waiting like years for like
obviously these happen
like
in under
luxury consumer products.
Yeah,
right. Like China and like Soviet Russia, like back in the day, like these used to be very backwards countries. Like America doesn't have that problem. We don't need to industrialize anymore. So I don't know. Like I think it would be kind of like a utopia society if America became socialist because of like how productive our society actually is.
Yeah, that is true. I think also the middle class is kind of dying. Like let's be honest, there's not going to be that many people who are comfortable and in the middle class. Everybody's going to be renting soon. Nobody's going to be a homeowner soon. In my small conservative town, right outside of LA, a couple hours from LA, almost every single house has been bought by a multi-billion-dollar company in LA or San Francisco. So everybody is renting in this town. Nobody owns a house. Every single new house that we get gets bought up by these big corporations. There's so few homeowners left in this town.
That is crazy. Yeah.
And that's just the future of America. Pretty much like that middle class dream of the owning the house and the two kids and the dog. It's going to be such a small section of humanity that everybody's going to be at the bottom. And when you're at the bottom, it's a lot easier to sell socialism because we have nowhere else to go. Things can't get any worse. Basically, at that point, it's just damage control, real damage control, right? Socialistic damage control, and then going beyond damage control. But at the first, it's just damage control. Yeah. I think the statistic now is I think 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 66%.
And that number was up 8%. It used to be 58%, I believe, in 2021. I don't know if anyone's going to fact check me on this, but I think that's about right.
I always forget how fucked this country is.
It's because all of our content is based around, I mean, this is back to the cultural hegemony part, but all of our content that we see online is based around that upper middle class, that top 20% of Americans. Like they dominate the culture in America.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't seem like 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck because that's not what we see online. That's not what we see in our TV shows.
Yeah. HGTV or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like you wouldn't believe 66%, I think, if your only interaction with the world was through the internet, through the media.
Yeah. And it's just so unfortunate that for a lot of these people, the easier answer is fascism. And we have to make the easier answer the most logical one, which is communism. Communism is the most logical answer to all of these issues. But people create these, as you said before, phantasms, middle-class people. I think socialism and revolution only happens when people have nothing left to lose, basically. Like the people of Palestine, they are ripe for revolution. What more do they have left to lose? They've lost their daughters, their sons, their houses. The people of Vietnam, what did they had left to lose? They were under the colonialist boot of the French. Many of them were living in very rural societies. Some of them in the forests, right? Like very. It was almost like they were living in the 14th century, right? What did the people of Tsarist Russia have left to lose? What did the people of China have left to lose after the rape of Nanking? And, of course, being peasants. so many people in America still have something left to lose, right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to fight until there's nothing left to lose. And our goal is just to build up a consciousness so that when we get to that point where there is nothing left to lose, they're going to go towards communism and not fascism.
Right. And that, I think, to anyone watching who's like, what's your solution whenever we talk about electoral politics? This is the solution. It's building that consciousness. So when the day comes, when the day of revolution comes, I guess, there's a big enough base where like we can beat the fascists.
Yeah. In the Philippines, their struggle is with the gun, right? It's in the forest. They're shooting Filipino cops, right? And they're these Maoist guerrillas having lesbian weddings in the forest, it's amazing, right? We look at this and we're like, hell yeah. In India, of course, the same thing with the Naxalites. In America, our struggle is going back to Gramsci. It's ideological. It's all within the mental sphere because we're not in the material conditions yet where we can just imagine trying to do a guerrilla war in Appalachia or something. Like it could happen, but it's not going to be successful, right?
Right. The people aren't there yet. If that happened, most people would not be on board.
We would isolate ourselves from the rest of society immediately.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, our main goal is just to continue that ideological struggle and bring up that class consciousness. This has been a lovely conversation. Again, I'm with TooMeanToBean. Do you have any final concluding remarks? Where can people find you? What are the websites from you that they should check out? And what should they check out in the future from you? Keep an eye out.
So the websites are for regarding the reverse canary mission. It's reversecanarymission.org. The other website I was talking about is joinalocal.org. The website is currently kind of under construction, so I wouldn't necessarily go there just yet. And the other project that I talked about is yet to be released, but I will announce it on my TikTok. And the handle there is TooMeanToBean. TooMean. This conversation has been great. I'm glad you had me on.
Yeah, of course.
And happy to jump on in any future episodes as well.
Of course. I'd love to have you on for future discussion, further discussion if something happens. How did you come up with your username, by the way? I meant to ask you that at the beginning.
It was just a nonsense phrase one of my friends said one day.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything.
Okay, so it's a joke. I got you.
Yeah.
This has been lovely, and thank you so much for coming on, and bye-bye.
All right, see you later.